Hello, everyone. We're on the cusp of celebrating what's considered to be the most joyous of all Jewish holidays, the festival of Succot. And the central ritual of this holiday is, of course, the shaking of the Lulab and the etrog, the four species. And so I'd like to share with you today how these species are waved here at Bevis Marks Synagogue, and a bit about the history of the way it's been done in different places and the way that we do it today. Now, before I show you exactly how it's waved, we wave the Lulav and etrog at four different parts of the service. We wave the Lulav when we recite the blessing over the Lulav and etrog. We then wave the Lulav during the Hallel, during the festival hymns. We also carry the Lulav while doing the circles around the Teba, the Hoshanot, and something that's unique to Bevis Marks Synagogue or to the Western Sephardim more generally is that we also hold the Lulav and etrog while reciting the Amidah for the Musaf. I always find that particularly meaningful. Of course, the Lulav and etrog is used in the form of prayer, used as a way of prayer. And so to actually hold it while saying the Musaf feels quite special to be able to do that. And it's something I always look forward to here at Bevis Marks, is that quiet moment when we are saying Musaf, holding Lulav and etrog in prayer, praying for the year ahead. We'll talk a bit more about what, in fact, we are praying for in just a moment. But of course, we take Lulav and etrog in hand. We say the blessing while the etrog is facing downwards, always holding Lulav in your dominant hand. I'm a lefty, so in my left hand and the etrog in the weaker hand, saying the blessings. And then once the blessings are recited, flipping the etrog over and then doing the various waves. The reason we hold the etrog down is that, technically speaking, when one simply picks up the Lulav and etrog together, one is already fulfilling the mitzvah of taking the Lulav and etrog. But as is always our way, we say a blessing before we do that to focus our attention. And so we want to make sure that we're not actually doing the mitzvah yet. So we pick it up with the etrog down, say the blessing, and then flip the etrog over, ready to perform the mitzvah of the Lulav and etrog. Now, exactly the way that the Lulav and etrog is meant to be waved is done different ways in different places. The way that it's done here at Bevis Marks is in the following manner. We first turn to the direction that we're facing, so we will wave it to the east in three movements. We then move towards the south. We then move towards the west, then to the north, and then up and down. What's interesting is that this is waved while the Chazan is waving during the Hallel, and not as is the case in many synagogues where the Chazan waves it while saying particular passages in the Hallel, and then when the community repeats those passages, they then do their own waving. We, in fact, wave it along with the Chazan, and then we say the repetition of particular words, but without the waving at that moment. So something a bit interesting, unique to what's done here. What's interesting is that while this is the case today also in Amsterdam, we have records that that wasn't always the way it had been. And the reason that we know that is from records in the community in Curaçao in the Caribbean. Because we know that there was a huge fight there around the 1740s upon the arrival of a new minister. Reverend Samuel Mendes de Sola arrived in 1744, and we know that when he arrived, he tried to, shall we say, impose the way that the Lulav and etrog was being waved in Amsterdam at that time. And the way that it was waved in Amsterdam during those years was in accordance with the Kabbalistic way of waving Lulav, that of the Ari. And the way that they waved the Lulav during those years was as following. They would first do it towards the south, then towards the north, then towards the east, the way that I'm now facing, then up and down, and then finally would turn facing towards the west, actually with their back to the Hechal. As I mentioned, this wasn't the way they had been doing it in Curacao. They were doing it in Curacao the way that I had demonstrated that we do it today at Bevis Marks Synagogue, which is in accordance with Shulchan Aruch, with Rav Yosef Karo. The community was quite upset that this new minister was trying to change the minhag, and they wrote letters to the Parnasim in Amsterdam, arguing that despite whatever they may do in Amsterdam, that's not the minhag in Curacao, and they were insistent that indeed it should be done that way, and the minister actually had to sign that he would not change the custom, and they were able to preserve doing it according to Rav Yosef Karo that way in Curacao. Interestingly, as I mentioned, in Amsterdam today, they now also do it in accordance with Yosef Karo. So it seems that there was some years there of a bit more Kabbalistic influence, but they eventually returned to what I would say is the more normative practice of the way that I've demonstrated. One interesting, shall we say, footnote is I've come across some early records of the way that various rituals were performed here at Bevis Marks Synagogue in a work by Miriam Mendez Belisario called Sabbath Evenings at Home. She published it in 1856. And it's about a number of different subjects about Judaism, but she talks about the holidays too. And in it, she explains how it was done at Bevis Marks as she had seen it. And what she writes, and I have it here in front of me, she says the way they did it was that they would do it east, then west, and then they would turn north, and then south, and then up and down. Seems a bit unusual, not in accordance with anything else I've seen elsewhere. And as I mentioned, it's not what we do today in Bevis Marks. So either they were doing it differently back in the 1800s, or perhaps Ms. Belisario was not being precise with the way she described it. She was simply just stating that it was done in all of these 6 directions. Be that as it may, regardless of exactly which way one waves Lulav and etrog, as I mentioned, simply by holding it and kind of extending, one has already performed the mitzvah. But of course, there is this added significance of waving in all of these directions. And at the essence of this, it means that we are praying, recognizing that God is in every place, that God is everywhere, in every direction, up and down. And when we take the Lulav and etrog, these different things that grow in different climates in different places, some by the river, some by the sea, some in orchards, some on hills. We do that, we're gathering everything together, and we're praying that this should be a year of plenty, that the harvests should be successful, and we are praying in every direction, praying to God that in every direction we should be able to find blessing. And certainly as we come out of the High Holy Days and enter this celebration, this joyous time of Succot, gathering together the bounty of the year as is represented in the 4 species, and we pray to God that the blessings that we hopefully have won during Kippur and during Rosh Hashanah will now be manifest in blessings in every direction, in all of our endeavors throughout the rest of the year. And so with that, I wish everyone a very wonderful Sukkot, or as we say here, Moadim L'Simcha, with the response Chagim Uzmanim L'Sason. Happy Sukkot.